Spooky season is upon us, and what better time to dive into some great horror books than right now? Okay, it's always a great time, but if you're looking for the right mood, you won't beat this time of year. So I put together a list of the best horror books to read during spooky season. A couple of things first. This isn't a list of the best horror books, just some that I feel fit the mood of the season. I also wanted to find stories that focus on different types of horror too, and I wanted books from different time periods, so you'll get some that are from the last couple of years and some that go back over 50 years old. I wanted there to be a couple of nonfiction books too, so they're represented here as well. Finally, it should go without saying, but this is just my list. I might even change my own mind by the weekend. But please leave some great recommendations in the comments down below. Coming in at number 10 is Clown in a Cornfield, which was also just adapted into a movie in 2025. It's one of the most recent books on the list, and it represents the slasher genre, which isn't always super easy to find in books. It begins the way that so many horror stories do, by moving. Quinn Raybrook and her father moved to Kettle Springs, Missouri from Philadelphia, and the teenage girl is understandably having a hard time adjusting. Kettle Springs has been struggling after a fire destroyed the Bay Pen syrup factory. Bay Pen is the company that was based in Kettle Springs, and its demise has brought the town a lot of hardship. Its mascot, Friendo, an evil-looking clown, reminds the people in Kettle Springs of when times were better. Quinn becomes friends with Cole, the popular kid, and his group, and she soon learns that the older people in town have no love for the younger generations. At a party out in the fields, a lot of Friendos emerge and start murdering the kids. Quinn, Cole, and the rest must learn the truth before the clown gets them all. It's a fun story about generational trauma and conflict, queer liberation, and includes some not-so-subtle shots at the MAGA movement, namely the evil clown who makes the people want to, and I quote, make Kettle Springs great again. Hey, I said this isn't a list of the best books, didn't I? But with the latest Conjuring film hitting theaters, you might be feeling like learning a bit more about the investigations of Ed and Lorraine Warren. The pair wrote a series of books themselves, but just know that you're getting a really one-sided point of view if you decide to read those. The Demonologist, a biography by Gerald Brittle, is a little less one-sided, but still very much favors the Warrens and doesn't do much to challenge them. I approached the book the same way I approached the Conjuring films. I know the real Ed and Lorraine Warren had many, many flaws, some of them truly terrible, but the movies are stories that are very fictionalized accounts of something that may or may not have actually happened. Same with this book. It's good for some accounts of hauntings and demonic activity if you're looking for more of that kind of thing. It was written in 1981, so you won't get a lot about the Warrens' famous later cases, like the Arnie Johnson case or the Smurl family haunting. Still, if you want some haunting stories that very much blur the line between fiction and nonfiction, give it a shot. I Was a Teenage Slasher finds Tolly Driver in the summer before his senior year of high school. He's not one of the cool kids. Instead, he just enjoys hanging out with his friend Amber Dennison. Then kids around the town of La Mesa, Texas start to die horrible deaths. Tolly learns a terrible truth about himself and has to have a reckoning about who he is and who he wants to be. It's a fun examination of the slasher genre, all while being a fun coming-of-age story too. Stephen Graham Jones is one of the best authors in horror right now, and he really knows how to weave a slasher story. How it ended made me sad, but the story's great throughout. You want to root for Tully the whole time, and I loved how Amber continued to stand by him even as they learned more about what Tully was dealing with. It's another recent publication, so if you're looking for something newer, this will be a good fit too. Hey, before we continue on, if you like horror, you should definitely be subscribed to the channel. Our series Scary Stories dives deep into the horror genre on the screen and the page, giving backstory and finding things you might have missed. Then we have our timeline series, starting with the Conjuring franchise. So take a second, hit the subscribe button, make sure notifications are on. We appreciate it more than you know. Graham Masterton is another huge name in horror. The Children God Forgot, published in 2021, honestly creeped me the hell out. It's set in London, and it starts with a woman who had an abortion months ago now waking up in the hospital needing a C-section. The fetus is deformed but somehow alive, and it takes off moving on its own. The fetus moves with incredible speed, and it's incredibly dangerous. People are found with their eyes torn out and disfigured and mauled beyond belief at the hands of this being. DC Jerry Pardo and DS Jamila Partel, supernatural investigators in London, set out to find the truth behind the events. It's some extreme body horror at times, so be aware of that, and if that creeps you out too much, this might not be the book for you. But I found it really chilling and a really great horror story. The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson is billed as the true story of what happened in that house, and it inspired a movie franchise that's still going today, for better and usually for worse. Ronald DeFeo murdered his entire family in the middle of the night on November 13th, 1974. While awaiting trial, he claimed that the voices in his head told him to murder his family and that he was possessed. A year later, the Lutz family moves into the house. They only make it 28 days before noping the F out of there. This book by Jay Anson details the accounts of what happened to the Lutz family. The story captured the fascination of America at the time, and the accounts have been doubted by many, but supported by people like Ed and Lorraine Warren, who investigated the goings-on in the home and were part of the famous seance in the Amityville home. If you like vampire stories, Coffin Moon by Keith Rawson is a brand new book that you should think about picking up. It's set in Portland, Oregon in the 1970s and follows Dwayne Miner, who's been home from the Vietnam War for about a year and has been struggling to find his place in the world. Then his wife and in-laws are murdered in extremely brutal fashion in what appears to be a revenge killing by a strange, evil entity. Dwayne and his niece pursue different means to get their revenge as they realize the man they are chasing is much more than just a man, and much more dangerous. The book is a fun horror story, but also a nice way of looking at trauma, PTSD, and loss. I know, many horror novels have these themes, but folklore states that evil preys on grief and pain. So from that standpoint, it's the right lane. It's another really quick read too, at just over 300 pages. Shirley Jackson wrote The Haunting of Hill House after reading stories about psychic researchers who investigated a haunted house in the 1800s. In the novel, Dr. John Montague, a paranormal investigator, has rented Hill House for the summer, and he invited different experts in their fields to come stay for the summer to research the events at the home. The hauntings increase gradually, with Eleanor, who has visions, experiencing more and more. Eventually, Eleanor is accused of either inventing or creating the disturbances. Are either of them true? You'll have to read to find out. If all this sounds vaguely familiar but you haven't read the book, it might be because the story has been adapted into a movie twice, first in 1963 and then in 1999, both times titled The Haunting. It's also been turned into a streaming show. Alright, I've really tried to keep the chonky books off the list, but it is just too good to leave off here. Yeah, there are movies from the late 2010s, but nothing beats the original book. Pennywise, which is really an evil interdimensional entity, takes the form of what the person fears most, but will often appear in the form of a creepy clown for the reader's benefit. Every 27 years, Pennywise will resurface to feed. It prefers children because of the intensity of fear in them. A group of children in 1956, known as the Losers Club, are able to overcome the entity, but they return to Derry to face him 27 years later as adults. It's a wonderful story of friendship, identity, and coming to terms with one's place in life. In true King fashion, the ending doesn't come close to living up to the overall book, but the journey here is so worth the effort that it's still a must-read. And yes, there is that scene at the end of the book that depicts some really weird shit, and I don't know why King decided to include it, but aside from that, the book is one of my absolute favorites of all time, and I highly recommend it. William Peter Blatty wrote both the novel The Exorcist and the screenplay for the iconic film that released in 1973. The movie is one of the scariest I've ever seen, even to this day, and the book holds up today too. Regan McNeil begins to experience sleeplessness, spasms, and convulsions, unsure of how to help her daughter. Her mother, Chris, is frustrated when doctors can't find anything wrong with her. As the episodes worsen, Chris turns to the church. What follows is a harrowing confrontation between Father Marin and the demon inhabiting the young girl's body. This book is almost 55 years old now, but it still holds up. It's also not super long, clocking in at just under 400 pages. I don't want to read too much of it if you haven't either read it or seen the film, but it's a classic story about the clash between good and evil and the willingness to survive. If you've never read it, it should definitely be on your TBR. At number 1 is Salem's Lot by Stephen King. And in the book, author Ben Mears has returned to his hometown of Jerusalem's Lot, Maine, to try to generate an idea for his next book. Over time, he discovers that the town is being taken over by a powerful vampire. The vampire resides in the famed Masterton house, and there's a final confrontation between Ben and the evil entity. It's a fun story about facing past trauma, moving forward through grief, and facing the idea that you can't go home again. It's also a pretty cool vampire story. In fact, Stephen King has stated that Salem's Lot is his favorite book that he's ever written. That's a pretty good endorsement. And yeah, there's the HBO Max adaptation from a couple of years ago, but don't rely on that. The book is so much better, and it's definitely worth your time. So what are your favorite books to read this time of year? Which book did we miss? Let us know in comments. Be sure to like this video, subscribe for more on books, horror, and a whole lot more. Have a great day, everybody. Stay strange out there.